So a couple days back, I finished Peacemaker Season 2, and I'm not as positive as I would like to be, unfortunately. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I like to talk about a lot of movies and TV shows on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Peacemaker Season 2 over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. And if you enjoy this video, click the like button, be sure to subscribe, because that really does help a lot. And with all that said, let's just get straight into the good. And for me, what worked about Peacemaker Season 2 was the entertainment value and the enjoyment of the character's company in particular. As somebody that was a big, gigantic fan of Season 1, if you don't know context, Season 1, when it came out, I wasn't terribly excited for, coming off the Suicide Squad, but the show won me over really quickly, and it was so good that every Thursday after school I would go and watch the latest episode, even before doing homework. That's just how excited I was about the show. And it was a show that I just thought really worked on an emotional level, had great character work, and so naturally I was very excited when they said they were doing a Season 2. And then they did this whole reboot thing, and oh, by the way, I should mention spoiler warning. Like, I'm going to be spoiling away all Season 2, and so you can spoil away down below in the comment section, share what you liked and didn't like, and that's your spoiler warning. But anyways, back to my Peacemaker Season 1 experience. I loved it so much, and I was really excited when they announced that Season 2 was underway as soon as the series finished. And they've made it pretty clear now that the finale is dropped that Season 2 is not only just Season 2, it is the finale to the entire show. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later, but what I loved about the first season was the characters and the character dynamics, and that's also what I really enjoy about this season. Watching these characters. They are very entertaining. They are very committed to their roles. John Cena, of course, is very entertaining, but even like Vigilante gets some more laughs out of the way in Peacemaker Season 2, and I think that it's just a very entertaining watch. Also, there is a compelling continuation of some characters. We'll get into more of the characters when we move on to the bad. I'll probably bring up the characters later if I remember to, because there are some things that I wasn't so crazy about with the characters, but I think some of them worked quite well. In particular, with Harcourt, I think they actually found a nice new angle and a nice direction to take that character coming off of Season 1 and the ending to that season and what that meant for Season 2, and what they did with Harcourt I thought worked probably better than any of the other characters. They used the multiverse in order to bring this sort of new internal conflict within Chris, Peacemaker, and for the most part, I would say it was effective enough. We'll get into more of that in the bad section, but I would say it's a compelling enough continuation of certain characters that I think makes enough sense coming off of Season 1. Likewise, of course, this is a James Gunn project, and it has James Gunn's signature humor written all throughout it. Like Season 1, maybe not all the jokes land, but it did make me laugh. It is funny all throughout the entire thing. Maybe it's a hit or miss, but that's what all comedies are. And so, did I have fun? Did I laugh watching Peacemaker Season 2 all throughout it? Yes, I did. And of course, the best thing about Peacemaker Season 1, of course, was the opening intro dance number. Does Peacemaker Season 2's dance number top that of Season 1's? No, I would not say it does. It's a little bit like, since Season 1's was such a fresh new thing, I don't know that it'll ever be beaten, but Season 2's opening number is still very good. It's still very memorable and is put on another banger song. And that's fun about James Gunn, is that the dance numbers are so distinct in Peacemaker, and he gives us another great one here. And so I really enjoyed the dance number of this one. And unfortunately, that's all I can say about the good. I wish I was more positive on Peacemaker Season 2 as I wanted to be, but I have to be completely honest in my review, so let's move on to the bad. And unfortunately, I think Peacemaker Season 2 might be the most disappointing movie or TV show that I've seen the entire year. And I told the story earlier about how excited I was about Peacemaker Season 1. And I think Peacemaker Season 2 I thought was going just fine. Up until the very last episode that I think just soured me on the entire thing. And that's the word, soured. That kind of keeps coming up whenever I think about Peacemaker Season 2. And the reason for that is because the show ends on a really unsatisfying note. And I guess I would be lenient on it if this was Peacemaker Season 2's finale. I watched through all of The Boys recently for the first time, and The Boys Season 4 kind of ends on this cliffhanger that's setting up Season 5. But at least The Boys Season 4 ends on a cliffhanger, and we will see the continuation of this plotline in the next season. This was not the conclusion to The Boys. This was the conclusion to The Boys Season 4 that made you wanting more. But Peacemaker Season 2's finale was not only the conclusion to Peacemaker Season 2, it was the conclusion to Peacemaker. As recently James Gunn confirmed that we're not getting a Season 3, and instead we're going to see the follow-up to these plot lines in other projects. And I don't think that was the right way to go, especially for the ending to a show. Because it just ended on this really sour note where the cliffhanger is that Rick Flag kidnaps Peacemaker, and because he's so, consumed by vengeance about, what happened in the Suicide Squad, he, traps him in this universe that he wants to put superheroes in. And I just think that was a really unsatisfying way to end the show, as we will never see the proper follow-up. We will never see a Season 3. This was the end of Peacemaker. And that's just a really sour way to end it. And it felt very clear to me that this was more interested in setting up Man of Tomorrow, the Superman sequel in a couple of years, than it was being Peacemaker Season 2. And what I mean by that is that the first 7 episodes are kind of about Chris and this other universe that he finds, and how he's tempted to go into that universe, but also finds out it's Nazi world, and he has to come to his senses and then go back, or fix Nazi world or whatever. That was what the first 7 episodes set up. The last episode feels completely detached from all of that. The last episode instead is just primarily about Rick Flag and his descent into evil, and Peacemaker's kind of becomes a side character in his own show. He doesn't get this proper resolution, and I think some of that is that, once again, it was not very interested in being Peacemaker Season 2. It was more interested in being Man of Tomorrow setup. But it's like they couldn't find any other way to set up Man of Tomorrow, and they weren't really interested in a Peacemaker Season 2, so they just put the Man of Tomorrow setup straight into Peacemaker Season 2. And so, thus, with a majority of the characters, it felt like they weren't really sure what to do with them, and even some of the characters and ideas, in where Chris Smith he kind of has a repeated arc here in Season 2 where it's kind of compelling, but it just goes absolutely nowhere, or it just resolves itself in the most sort of repetitive and rushed way possible, especially in the final episode. So he goes off to this other universe, finds a father that cares for him, his brother is alive, Harcourt likes him, and then he just goes off into this other universe, Season 1 wasn't already about finding that community that respected him and that loved him for what he is. Where Season 1 was kind of already that. Season 2 is just doing that same thing with a multiverse gimmick. And his arc felt even more childish in this one for me, is because in the finale episode, it feels like he's only happy because Harcourt confesses that she likes him. He's just oh, Harcourt no like me, I go off to this universe. Harcourt like me, I go back to my universe. It felt kind of like that to me. And I don't think that was intentional. I don't think that was what James Gunn was going for. But I do think I did feel that way with it. And like Economos this time doesn't really have much to do other than he's kind of the worst version of Harcourt. I mentioned Harcourt in the good. Economos is kind of like the worst character arc version of her in this season. Vigilante doesn't really have much to do. He's funny and charming when he can be funny and charming. Some of the humor with Vigilante just feels kind of cruel, where he's just being absolutely like mean to his mother for no reason. And there were just some things that, like, other thing here is that it focused in on ideas that should have been properly set up instead of just plopped into the final episode for the setup of Man of Tomorrow. And it decided to not focus in on the more interesting things. So the interesting things are kind of sidelined for the setup to Man of Tomorrow. So Rick Flag and his villain arc does not feel earned at all. And this is why I really don't like Rick Flag in this universe, is because he does not feel like the same character he was back in Creature Commandos. He was this guy in charge that was like, so he didn't seem like the type of guy that immediately had lost his son, and he makes some really foolish decisions in Creature Commandos, so I wasn't really a big fan of him in Creature Commandos. In Superman, he tries to help metahumans, and then in Peacemaker Season 2, he wants to get rid of all metahumans. He even teams up with Lex Luthor in Peacemaker to do so. Like, it's like the Rick Flag villain arc just doesn't feel earned at all to me. It feels too sudden. It kind of like all just plays out in a music video, quite literally in a music video in the final episode of season 2. And the actual interesting plot lines are just kind of that you think are the main plot are just kind of sidelined. So you get the whole Nazi world thing. That's kind of the focal point of the first 7 episodes that you think is actually the main plot of it, is him being tempted to stay in Nazi world. But then as soon as the twist happens, which it happens way too late, by the way, as soon as the twist happens that it's Nazi world, or Earth X in the comics, it felt like it was just, this is Nazi world? Well then, I don't want to stay here anymore. And it's that thin. It's not, there's no more temptation, there's like nothing there. And the entire thing didn't lead to the finale that we got. It didn't lead to any sort of... There were no particular stakes here, and no threats or anything like that. So at the end of the 7th episode, you get a moment where Keith, Peacemaker's brother, doesn't die and is hospitalized. And I legitimately thought he was going to come back in the final episode for this big final battle between the two, because he's going to want revenge. And it just never follows up on that. It just never does that. And I'm okay with making a very strong character-based story, but that's really not what this season was interested in. It was interested primarily, like I said, the problem with this season is that it's only here to set up Man of Tomorrow. It wasn't here to tell like this story with fights or even the thinnest, and it has the thinnest possible conflicts for Peacemaker Season 2. It was here to set up Man of Tomorrow. And that's just like, that's the root of the problem with this season to me. And, you know, like the finale, like I said, kind of just shattered me on the whole thing. Like, other things about here is that, like, character arcs in the finale happen off screen with the Bordeaux character and the other guy. Like, I think you know who I'm talking about. I forgot his name. But then, like, and there are legitimately, like, 3 separate music videos in the final episode. And these music videos are kind of just, like, some of them are just montages, like I said, with Rick Flag. And it just, there was no end goal here. There was really not much that the characters are trying to overcome. And whenever there was conflict, internal conflict with, like, Peacemaker, it's just kind of a repeat of what was done in the first season. And the cliffhangers, what it leaves dangling with the multiverse stuff, and how it sets up Man of Tomorrow, sabotaged itself. In setting up a future film that could potentially be awesome, what it instead did was it shot itself in the foot and sabotaged itself to set up something potentially awesome. And that's just baffling to me. Like, because I think that I just really love season 1, and I would really like to know what that original plan for the first season would have been, where when DC wasn't going to get rebooted by James Gunn. Like, what was that first, like, was it always going to be like this? I'm sure it wasn't, because as the Superman ties in the new universe and everything. But overall, the finale simply did not work, and just it soured me on the entire thing. And like, some of the stuff that happens in the previous episodes that I do enjoy are now kind of undermined, because some plot lines just go nowhere. Some things just go nowhere. And some things will never be followed up upon, because we're not going to get a season 3 of this. So, overall, this breaks my heart, but I have to give it a C. I'm not a James Gunn hater. I'm not in the culture wars online. I'm not a Snyder Glazer. I'm not a James Gunn hater. I just have to be completely honest, and I think for the very first time, the gun has jammed. I'm sorry, James Gunn, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Peacemaker Season 2, but so down below in the comment section, maybe you enjoyed it a lot more than I did. There are a bunch of people that I see that are really enjoying it, but over on my channel I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking out to the end. I'll see you in the next one.